supported option 4, because I do understand the importance of bringing something like this forward, but I still have now experienced and know that if we create the same rules for different situations, then we will not have the as robust policy discussions that I think that we should have and that we overcome. And so I would say it's something that allows us to be more fluid in the process. I certainly support that. But as it is written right now, I'm not able to support what's currently in front of us. We could go back to the discussion around what option 4 that we had a couple of weeks ago. I think that would help me, but right now I just don't want to put, especially with all of the ways that our meetings are being used. I understand that we all have our names on the ballot, that we put ourselves out there, but there are different situations for everyone, and I'm really getting concerned about gossiping, all those other things. So as it's written, I will be able to support it, but I'm open to having a discussion, probably at a later time, because I'm not necessarily prepared to redline what we brought forward today, but for something that allows a bit more fluidity in our subcommittee discussions, particularly with the ad hoc. Supervisor Anderson.
If I may just address your concern. So this would be the general rule. However, if you were to present a subcommittee or ad hoc committee moving forward, and you said you had to over doxing parents who are giving us information, you could ask for it to present from it. Every committee moving forward, I'm going to be asking for all this transparency because we had some bad experiences with no transparency. So you'll have to make that argument either way. I'm just saying, why don't we decide on the side of transparency unless there is a legitimate reason. Now, I will tell you that I sat through a lot of committees as the Vice Chair of Public Safety for 12 years in the state legislature, and we had a lot of parents that came and spoke, and other bodies do this all the time with transparency. And I understand your concern, but we're making special rules when nobody else has those special rules. I really think it's important that we be as transparent as possible. My office is still getting calls about the ad hoc committee that had all the secret meetings with no minutes, no list of who they met with, none of the presentations. And you went to great lengths to put that stuff on the web and to bring it back to make sure people had that access. I think having this in the foreground is the general rule, and then if you feel that your committee is going to be dealing with youth that need that secrecy, just make that argument when you create the ad hoc committee. Would that be amenable to you? Because you're going to have to make the ad hoc committee anyway. What difference does it make if you action board letter? We have these concerns, and this is what we're going to do.
Let me go to Supervisor and Chairperson McGarry. I still I have the same concerns that I had at the last meeting. Those don't really change, especially because we have some other options for us last time. But go ahead, Ron.
Well, option 4 was to do nothing. So, saying that we had an option, we have the option today to do nothing. So you can say you're opting to do nothing. That's option 4.
You can say that because you can say whatever you want, but I said that I would opt to do option 4.
No, I get it, but option 4 was to do nothing.
Chairperson McGarry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. From my recall, the conversation we had last time, and a supervisor was absent, was to look at this on a case-by-case basis. And, maybe there was a different experience in the assembly, but I have, as a participant in the Juvenile Justice Ad Hoc Subcommittee, and it's my first time, to be completely honest, working in this space of criminal justice and criminal impacted families, or justice impacted families. I understand now the nuance of the work that we're doing there, the importance of not secrecy, but of the ability of discussion, public comment, presentations, and everything it entails. My concern is that the privacy of some of the participants in the juvenile justice ad hoc. Now, I have said this from the get-go, I'm very, very open and very for transparency. The work that you and I have been doing, Supervisor Anderson, on the fiscal transparency and accountability subcommittee. If we have the ability to share the minutes and we have the ability to stream it, or if even people like to come in person and participate, that's absolutely already available. I just think that the way the argument has been presented is a bit of a fallacy, because it's starting from a point of there's secrecy, and there is no secrecy that I have been witness to during my time here. And I do think that there's some perhaps even misconception from some of the speakers. They were bringing up some of the boards and commissions that are formed by volunteers, that those are subject to Brown Act, because that's the way it has to be. On our ad hocs, they're not, because that literally is the intent behind it, is to have the ability to be flexible, nimble, and fast-paced and short, with a short timeline. It's not forever. An ad hoc is not forever. So that we can make that information, produce that information, and bring it forward to the entire board. Now, if the work of ad hocs lengthens, or it seems that it's going to take a longer time, then we should consider changing an ad hoc into a standing committee, and then have that be subject to the Brown Act. But as I said before, and I'll say it again today, I support transparency and accountability. But when it comes to this particular policy, I think it has to be determined on a case-by-case basis as that proposed subcommittee comes before us at that particular point in time.
Thank you very much, and that's what I recall option 4 was. Supervisor President.
Well, to me, Supervisor Anderson's request is pretty simple. These are like the overall, what we want to try to achieve with every subcommittee. But there's going to be times, even in these meetings, we go into closed session because of sensitive material. Right? If you have sensitive material, no one would fault you for saying, okay, we got to clear the room because we got parents, we got kids, we got some sort of issue here. So no one would fault anybody for doing that. I mean, we should be protecting sensitive material, or whatever it is that but what was being presented today, I think it's very reasonable, very doable, and if we have to work around it, we will. But to me, this is, we're digging way deep into the weeds and looking for ways to vote against it. So I'm still amazed. Thanks.
Yeah, I get it. I would just say again, sometimes when we start these processes, even with my work in the criminal legal system, embarking upon the juvenile justice ad hoc subcommittee, I still didn't necessarily think about that aspect of retaliation until we got into the work. And if we would have brought a board letter forward that didn't make provision for that, we still would not have been able to receive that information. So if we would have complied with the policies such as presented here today, and then ran into an issue where we could not get the information that otherwise we would have been able to, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that sometimes you don't know where you're going to end up when you start. And that's the reason for the flexibility. I was at the city, we had 8, 9, sometimes 9 meetings. We had a 5 of 9, we had 4 people in the committee. We could make votes and then bring those recommendations to the full council. This is a body of 5. So it's there are different challenges, it's a different structure than the city, than the state. There's some places the state doesn't have to follow Brown Act like we do. They can go in their whole meeting with hundreds of people, and they can be talking to each other about the laws that that are before them, when we cannot do that. We cannot do that. So that's what I'm saying, that the state, they don't have to follow the Brown Act at all when you were there, you know, but, for issues that come before them, like this issue, they would have been able to go to each board member and say, what do you want to do, what do you want to do? We cannot do that. So all I'm saying is that where we have no flexibility, rightfully so, we know why the Brown Act was put in place. And it stands and it is a good thing. We have those restrictions. We need some fluidity on the other end to be able to be effective for the people that we represent. That's all I'm saying. So, and again, I do think that this was a narrative that was put out there purposefully, and now we're having to kind of backtrack from that narrative when we've had consultants come before us. We have had budget item after budget item come before this board. I've been able to decide yea or nay with a 5-person body. So that's not, we're seeing it differently, and I get it, that's why we're here, right? So Supervisor Anderson.
If I may, on the Juvenile Justice Ad Hoc Committee, have you taken testimony from probation or any other organizations?
We have.
So the issue I have is, where would I go to find that? How would I know the subject matter? I can't, as the Brown Act asks you, unless you make that public information. That's the cloak of secrecy. Not that you're purposely doing it, but it's the cloak of secrecy. When you and Chair Lawson Meemer had your subcommittee meetings, there were no minutes, there were no list of witnesses, there were no lists of what they said, the information, and then you came out with policies where nobody could look at how you came to those policies and what that information was. I'm not saying that you were doing it purposefully, but I'm trying to remove that cloak so I don't have to feel calls from my constituents saying, where are they coming up with this stuff? They're not including us at all. And I get that you don't have to fall under the Brown Act, but we should try to meet, not the letter of the law, but the meaning and spirit of the law of the Brown Act with all of us. So even in that, your juvenile justice, it's still a cloak of secrecy. And I get you want to protect people, but I think that coming back to the board and when you discover it and say, hey, look, we need to have these protections moving forward. No one on this board is going to say, no, we want to dox all the witnesses. We're not going to say that.
Just for the record, I don't think anybody on this board can do that.
No, I agree. That's what I'm saying. So if we accept this today, it doesn't change any of that. When you present on something that you think is going to be, you just simply put it in there. If there's a witness that comes forward that you can't, just include it in the subcommittee moving forward. But we still don't have any access to any of the testimony outside of that that you have access to. Now you're going to come forward with a policy down the road that's going to be hard for us to support because we haven't heard from anybody. It saves time if we post things on the web so I can see you took this information from probation, you took this information from psychologists, from psychiatrists, from all these experts, and now I can go back and double check it instead of coming up here and having to quiz you, and you're saying, well, that's what the witnesses said. That's not transparent. So how do we get there? I'm not trying to be unreasonable. How do we get there that I can go and go up to the website, but not just me, but all my constituents? And look, I want to protect kids, so that's not an issue. But in the legislature, we had hearings and we protected kids.
What I will focus on that subcommittee. I think you understand your overall point. We're committed to, if this is feasible, the CAO is putting forward I want to say mid-year, but we have a subcommittee for a certain amount of time. What the plan is to bring a board letter and recommendations from the subcommittee so that the entire board can discuss we can, if it's okay with my fellow subcommittee member, bring a memo to put in communications received, that goes through all of the information. We don't have an issue with that. We've been keeping track of it because we want to bring a robust board letter and a robust discussion to this board, but there's nothing that we can do there without this entire board. We're collecting information. We're synthesizing that information. It's coming from a lot of different areas, a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of different perspectives. And I hope that I at least have the trust with my colleagues to bring forth that information in a way that we have experience that is upfront, that will allow us to make those decisions. I do believe, and I have to go back and check the board letter, but I do believe in the original board letter, we did go through the subject matter that will be discussed. We're staying within that framework for the subcommittee, and also our report back mechanism in that board letter. So that's that we put those out there, and that's what we're sticking to for that subcommittee. And I'm happy to provide a memo and put it in the communications received for that time, so we don't have to think about it all at once. But again, that is the fluidity that we have when we work together as board members, that I think that we should be put into this work. I'm not saying anything you are saying is wrong, but I know sometimes we come up with these situations that we're not aware of. And one of the complaints we also hear from community members is that we're not able to act effectively and efficiently and fast enough with them. And one thing that the county has been very good at is responding to people when people need help. That when the floods came, and I know that was controversial, but we were able to get this board together and respond. We complain a lot about the city and other things. Half the reason I was there, I know. Half the reason is because you have to go through, they are tied to the bureaucracy of the process. They're not tied to representing people necessarily. I'm just trying to find a way that we can do that, all for our very benefits. Because I did have my hands tied when I couldn't help people, when I knew I had the resources to do it. And that's all I'm fighting against. I'm trying to just find that balance. That's all.
Well, I'll just finish by saying, if it was an ad hoc committee based on an emergency, that's all you have to do is put in your board letter and say that it's exempt from these policies. This is just the general rule. Right now, we're moving forward with every ad hoc committee moving forward. I'll be requesting all these items to be added to the ad hoc committee, and we'll have to do that each and every time. I believe that we're all going to agree on these things 90% of the time. The 10% of emergency or youth bound or whatever, you'll be asking for an exemption. So why not pass this today and just ask for an exemption moving forward? It's not a big deal, because we far fewer exemptions than there are general rules.
I understand. I do want to just point out real quick that with all the subcommittees, there are reports to the board of supervisors, and then there will continue to be quarterly reports for all of us to keep up with that information. You're correct.
But that's not seen as seeing the expert's witness testimony. There's no place to get that. Having the summary given, we don't know if it's an accurate summary. We may hear things differently based on our backgrounds, and having the expert televised. One of the people said, well, this is so cumbersome. I did the first supervisor Vargas, the supervisor hearing. We've had our meetings here. We have all the telecommunications information. It's really quite simple. It's not difficult at all. Look, I made my best pitch. If you have to vote no, I certainly understand it. I have to vote yes. I think that we say we're for transparency, and we find all the reasons under the sun not to be transparent. And I hope that I would touch your heart with my arguments, but I certainly did.
I appreciate it, Supervisor Anderson. If there's no further discussion, we can go ahead and call vote.
reminder that that motion fails due to a tie vote with Supervisor Anderson and Supervisor Desmond voting aye, and Supervisor Aguirre and Montgomery. To the board's rules of procedure, the board may continue the item for consideration at a future meeting. If the board takes no further action to continue the item to a specific date, then the item will be placed on the agenda for the next regular meeting on Thursday, June 25th, 2026.
All right. Andrew, can you go through that again?
Thank you, yes. Without the board taking any action today, it'll come back on Thursday, June 25th.
I'm sorry, say again.
So I can't wait.
Oh, yes.
Thank you very much. So, I said I wouldn't do this, and I can do it, but I did want to get a check. You all, do you want to proceed to item number 19? Let's get through.
Yes.
Diane's already, she's ready for us, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's go to item number 19, receive and approve the Behavioral Health Services Act 3-year integrated plan for fiscal years 2026 through 2029. Adopt a resolution certifying the city of county board of supervisors reviewing approval of the integrated plan. Authorize the Behavioral Health Services Director submission of the integrated plan to the Department of Healthcare Services. Please go forward with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to make the motion. Note to self, we have a motion.
I'll second. Yeah, I'll dress it up and everything.
Are we good?
All realize, yes.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair, members, staff, and members of the board. In March 2024, California voted to pass Proposition 1, which modernized the Behavioral Health Services by replacing the Mental Health Services Act with the Behavioral Health Services Act, or BHSA. As required by the BHSA, we have developed a 3-year integrated plan that outlines how we propose to utilize all behavioral health funding in alignment with our priorities as a specialty behavioral health plan and the priorities of the board. Today's presentation will highlight some of the changes under BHSA and provide an overview of the integrated plan. BHSA is funded through a 1% tax on personal income over $1 million and is also referred to as the millionaire's tax. It's part of a larger set of statewide behavioral health reforms that aim to transform the specialty behavioral health system. Several other key initiatives include BH Connect, which establishes new evidence-based practices and improves access to care, health payment reform under claim, which changes the way that we are reimbursed, and the continuum infrastructure program passes as part of Prop 1, which provides capital infrastructure funds to counties. Locally, to support the BHSA implementation, we took a holistic approach by reviewing all services across our continuum and prioritizing investments within essential treatment, housing, and support services, and areas of high need. We also looked at how to maximize opportunities across the new initiatives to support improved access, delivery of care, and long-term sustainability. As part of BHSA, we are required to submit a 3-year integrated plan. The integrated plan includes investments across all behavioral health funding sources. Our first integrated plan, which goes into effect on July 1st, has a proposed budget of about $1.6 billion. Of this, $1.4 billion is reflected in the fiscal year 26-27 recommended budget, and the remaining amount is budgeted outside of BHS and includes capital infrastructure, state hospital costs, and interagency agreements with other departments. Broadly, these investments have been driven by the expansion of services and infrastructure, including workforce opportunities and increased service utilization. If we narrow just to BHSA, next fiscal year we are proposing a budget of $329 million, which represents a $26 million increase over last year. BHSA funding will support the delivery of care and support services to more than 52,000 people annually. This includes services to more than 15,000 children, youth, and transitional age youth, and more than 37,000 adults and older adults. We also provide housing support to almost 19,000 people. Several changes will go into effect with the implementation of BHSA. First, off the top, counties will see a 5% reduction in their total funding allocation meaning we'll have to do more with fewer resources. For example, while DHSA will expand to also include funding for substance use services, it does not actually provide additional money to do so. Second, there are new requirements and less flexibility around how counties can use DHSA funding. The state has also put more emphasis on outcomes, accountability, and reporting, including new statewide behavioral health goals. DHSA also requires collaboration with an increased number of stakeholder groups. And finally, it places a greater focus on equity and access to ensure services are more inclusive and easier to navigate. We see this in the enhanced community engagement process and emphasis on early intervention programs. There are a number of things that will not change under DHSA that include Medi-Cal eligibility rules, so those are set by the state. It does not change the county's role either. We will continue to function as a specialty behavioral health plan. Overall, DHSA will elevate how we deliver care, how we measure performance, and how we coordinate across the system. DHSA shifts how funding is allocated by establishing 3 new categories that include behavioral health services and supports, which receives 35% of funding, full service partnership, which receives 35% also, and housing, which receives 30%. Under DHSA, the state's allocation doubles from 5 to 10% to shift administrative functions and prevention programming away from local counties and to this California Department of Public Health. Innovation funds will no longer be a required component either. With the implementation of MHSA, most services we fund under MHSA will transition to these new categories, with the exception of prevention programs. Now I'll highlight some of the services we will fund with each of the new categories. First, under the behavioral health services and supports, that's the foundation of our system. Services that we fund include crisis and outpatient services, along with treatment and recovery services, including new evidence-based practices. At least 51% of these funds must be for early intervention services, and more than half of those funds must be dedicated to services for children, youth, and young adults. Second, the full service partnership category, which offers the highest level of outpatient care and supports for our beneficiaries. Services include a whatever it takes approach to wrap around members who have the most complex needs. The third category is housing interventions, which provides a full continuum of housing to people with serious behavioral health needs, and includes interim housing, recovery residence, boarding care slots, and permanent supportive housing. 50% of the housing intervention funds must support people who are chronically homeless. Through behavioral health services and supports, we fund local crisis teams, crisis stabilization units, outpatient services, early intervention programming such as the childhood mental health treatment. As an example, our School Link program provides behavioral health services at school campuses, in homes, and communities to provide students and their families with individual, group, and family treatment. Within the full service partnership category, programming expands access to evidence-based programs, including assertive community treatment, intensive case management, high-fidelity wraparound for children and youth, and supported employment. Here, we support clubhouses, which are settings that help people with significant needs build social connections, engage in work and education activities, receive supportive services, and foster long-term recovery. Within housing interventions, we support beneficiaries, linking them to options that will help them maintain stability while they are in recovery. In November 2025, the board approved the Flexible Housing Pool Pilot to help people connect to transitional housing. It is designed using a whole person care approach that allows clients to receive housing, health, and support services in an integrated way. We're currently working with our 4 managed care plans to launch the housing pool this summer. Although the housing intervention category is new within DHSA, historically we have made significant investments to support housing. Currently, we combine MHSA funds and behavioral health bridge housing funds to support over $74 million of housing-related interventions annually. And as we shift to VHSA, our investment will grow further, upwards of about $80 million a year. We have also aligned and will exceed the requirement to allocate 50% of the housing intervention funds to support people with chronic homelessness. And as time-limited grants phase out, BHSA will provide stable, ongoing funding to sustain local housing capacity. Another key change under BHSA is a significant expansion of the community planning process, or CPP, which requires community engagement with 29 prescribed stakeholder groups identified by the state. CPP activities were conducted throughout 2020 and 2026 based on formal guidance released by the state in 2025. For this initial year, we engaged more than 1,900 people, including representatives from over 280 different organizations, through more than 100 structured engagement activities. We also received over 300 comments through our online platform and during the public hearing held at our advisory board meeting on May 7th. Stakeholders consistently identified priorities related to housing and homelessness, crisis response, youth and family supports, community education and navigation support, accessible and culturally responsive services, and the workforce. Here are several examples of how stakeholder feedback on the left was translated into the integrated plan priorities on the right. First, stakeholders outlined the importance of housing. So the integrated plan expands housing options through the addition of flexible housing pool pilot and boarding care spots. Next, to enhance early intervention, outpatient care, and crisis services, we are supporting enhancements that were outlined in the Children's Optimal Care Pathways model through additional crisis stabilization services and school-based services. The third item outlines the need for improved system navigation, which we are doing through enhanced investments into community health workers to support coordination across services. We will also support community-based programming reflective of the needs of specific communities. For example, last week I signed an agreement with the Indian Health Council to support reimbursement for traditional health care practices for tribal members. And the last theme is related to building the behavioral health workforce. This year we are enhancing our local Elevate Behavioral Health Fund and offering new Medi-Cal technical assistance to small, diverse, community-based organizations to support the growth of the workforce. These investments not only align with priorities outlined by stakeholders through this engagement, but they also enhance access to care for our beneficiaries. The integrated plan reflects BHSA requirements, local network adequacy requirements, our OCP models, and broad community feedback we received. Feedback from the public included expanded implementation details, workforce and housing information, outcome measures, and documentation of stakeholder feedback, which were all incorporated into the IEP. And while not every consideration was incorporated, all feedback was reviewed and considered by the behavioral health team. Some of the recommendations also fell outside of the scope of behavioral health services and into legal, regulatory, operational, or interagency areas. As we move forward from planning to implementation, stakeholder engagement will not end with the approval of this integrated plan. For us, it is the beginning of an ongoing process that will occur throughout the year. The integrated plan is really intended to be a dynamic planning document, which will evolve as our needs change, and we look forward to engaging with the community further. Today's action requests the board's authority to receive and approve the BHSA 3-year integrated plan, adopt a resolution, and authorize the Behavioral Health Services Director to make revisions requested by the state and submit the plan. Thank you. Our staff are here now to take questions.
Thank you for giving that a lot of really good information, so we appreciate it. We do have a motion and a second on the floor.
Thank you, Vice Chair Montgomery. Staff, we have 25 requests to speak on this item, 14 in person and 11 requesting to speak by phone. Also note for the record that we received 40 comments, 1 in support, 2 in opposition, and 1 neutral. For any individuals that requested to speak on item 19 by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. As we make this call, please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. Because there are 10 or more speakers on the side, you have 1 minute to address the board. Last year, please begin by stating your name for the audio record. I'll be calling in groups of 3, so I'll ask you to please listen for your name. To invite one of the first 3 individuals Rex Deanna, Jennifer Kennedy, and Moises Bear.
Good morning, supervisors. Good afternoon. My name is Rex Deanna, and I'm a San Diego native. I'm the owner of Union Yoga in Pacific Beach, and I'm here to support the county's focus on social connection, early intervention, and community-based health services in the BHSA integrated plan. At Union Yoga, our trauma-sensitive teachers have spent years offering subsidized yoga in people with recovery from substance abuse, eating disorders, and difficult life transitions. We've seen students choose yoga and community over their former habits that were harming them. We're here as a wraparound service to clinical care and to strengthen the prevention layer around it. My request is that the county include trusted community providers in that strategy. Early intervention needs to be available in places where people already go to move, connect, and feel community.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Jennifer Kennedy, and I represent Strategic Behavioral Health Initiative, a coalition of behavioral health leaders and advocates who share this board's commitment to San Diego children and youth. We are here as partners, but compelled to share the impact of the Behavioral Health Integrated Plan on children and youth. This year alone, $9 million in prevention and early intervention contracts were eliminated. That's 8 programs serving approximately 85,000 people. Cuts like suicide prevention in schools and psychiatry consultation for pediatricians. These are the earliest points of intervention, and their absence will compound over time. San Diego manages one of the largest behavioral health systems in California, yet the integrated plan, children and youth receive only 19% of program spending compared to a statewide average of 30%. This is the lowest of any major county. We ask for 3 things: 30% of behavioral health services expenditures directed to children with a public timeline, and a sustained partnership with providers to deliver this care. We are ready to get to the table.
As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like 3 additional speakers: Lily Valdiviano, Kaylee Levitt, and Angela Rowe.
Good afternoon, students. My name is Moises Bear. I'm a clinical psychologist and past president and CEO of the San Diego Center for Children. I'm here today representing SBHI to speak briefly about the challenges simply knowing the facts. In our June 1st testimony, we cited a projected $18.5 million reduction in children's services over 3 years. The county subsequently corrected that figure, restoring approximately $15 million. We appreciate that responsiveness. It highlights the value of independent analysis and stakeholder engagement in the budget process. At the same time, it raises a broader concern. Basic questions such as how much of the behavioral health budget serves children and how funding has changed over time should be easy to answer. Yet current budget documents make meaningful analysis and oversight nearly impossible. What remains clear is that San Diego allocates just 19% of behavioral health expenditure to children and youth, the lowest percentage among California's major counties.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Lily Valdiviano, representing SBHI. I begin by acknowledging the board's genuine leadership, the Youth Optimal Care Pathway, global crisis response teams in schools, and the restoration of $4.3 million to healthy development services for our youngest children. These are meaningful commitments, and we are grateful. And yet the data show outcomes are still moving in the wrong direction. 94% of California youth reported mental health challenges in an average month, up from 87% 2 years ago. Locally, suicide death rates among San Diego youth increased 6% from 2016 to 2023. ER encounters for self-harm increased 12%. From the county's own child and teen health report, behavioral health concerns are now the most common reason youth visit an emergency room, surpassing every illness and injury. The need is felt and we see a response.
Thank you. Speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Katie Levitt with Jewish Family Service, here today representing SBHI. While medical population has grown steadily over the past decade, the number of youth actually served has decreased by 26%. In fiscal year 22-23, San Diego reached only 33% of the enrolled children. This is well below the 4.2% average of the 8 largest counties in California. The gap represents thousands of children who are eligible, identifiable, and not being reached and provided timely treatment. These are children experiencing anxiety, depression, trauma, suicidal ideation, and serious emotional disturbances. The county's Youth Optimal Care Pathway sets the statewide average as a target, but the updated VHSA plan is projected to reach over 5,000 less children than the draft. Neither the budget nor VHSA plan provides meaningful funding increases to close this gap. We are asking this board to aim above average and ensure that every new dollar translates into more children receiving care. Thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'll invite 3 additional speakers. Rajiv Gidwani, Stephanie Shoya Beckman, and Natalie Nellens.
Hi, my name is Angela Rowe, and I'm also representing SBHI. For the first time, the VHSA integrated plan gives us a full view of mental health and substance use funding across all streams. What it shows is where youth is concerned. The draft plan projects approximately 2,000 young people would receive substance use services. The final plan comes to about roughly 1,000. To be clear, most young people do not need intensive treatment. This is precisely why prevention and early intervention matter. Alcohol and drug use is already among the leading reasons youth end up in emergency rooms. If we know the adult substance use crisis is severe, shouldn't we be investing more in this generation? Instead, the plan projects fewer youth, reduced prevention, early intervention. The statute designates youth as a priority population for substance use preventions. This isn't just values in question, this is a compliance one. We urge the board to prioritize. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Brady Line, a pediatrician in San Diego. Every day, parents are faced with mental health challenges for their children and teens. Often, the first place they turn is to their pediatrician. Pediatricians have developed a close relationship with their children and their families over the years. Whether it's a child's or a teen struggling with ADHD, depression, or anxiety, or considering self-harm, parents turn to their trusted pediatrician first. We've seen an increase in all mental health conditions, as you're all well aware of, the incredible increase in autism. Last year at Rady's in the emergency department, there was 44,700 visits for mental health. We hear about cannabis, but this is also beyond that. There are families coming into our emergency room every day. We know that the foundations of mental health start early and can appear anytime during the life course. It is so important to us as pediatricians that our national organization, American Academy of Pediatrics, has issued guidelines for helping us develop. And we know that increase big funds we can procure.
As the next speaker is coming forward, I'll invite 3 additional speakers. Cesar Javier, allegedly author, and Roberto Velasquez.
Good afternoon, supervisors. I'm Natalie Nellens, posing for SBHI. You've heard from community leaders and providers who deliver children's mental health services every day. The picture is clear. San Diego directs only 19% of behavioral health resources to children, the lowest of any large county against a 30% statewide average. This year, $9 million in prevention and early intervention contracts were eliminated, affecting 85,000 individuals. The updated PHS plan still projects serving 5,094 fewer children than the draft, which continues its decade pattern. We recognize this board has real constraints. We're not here to make your job harder. We're here to help. Over-realized revenues, fund balances, grant opportunities, we're ready to pursue them with you. We're asking for 3 commitments. 30% of PHS expenditures directed to children, annual reporting by age, and sustained partnership. Standing with children are counting on all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I'm not sure whether I'm in favor or against, but after listening to the presentation, I am against because it is a waste. Evidence is good governance look into the human or San Diegans. The human body, and this is behavioral. This is mental. Throughout this governance, from conception to grade, it is our transparency, accountability, guilt to deliver public good. Timeliness, efficiency, and effectivity, or must be effective. Our point here is what causes these diseases, and we have to uproot it.
Thank you.
Provide clean water, provide clean food,
Thank you, Speaker.
clean and safe neighborhood, which we are not doing. Thank you. I am against this. I'm sorry for this, except time.
Next speaker, please. This next speaker is coming for all the remaining speakers in person. Kimberly Mullen and Leonard Garrison.
Hello, I'm Roberto Velasquez, and I'm President and CEO of Southern Caregiver Resource Center. I'm here today again to speak to you about the mental health needs of the over 490,000 family caregivers in San Diego County, half of whom are adults themselves, older adults suffering, caring for loved ones with Alzheimer's disease. Our shocked that our integrated plan does not include any early interventions for our older adult population. We are an aging and dementia-prone community and intervention program for the over 1 adult caregivers. This is very disappointing. We know that it's well documented that chronic stress related to caregiving leads to severe depression, anxiety, and social isolation. I'm here to ask for your help. We need your leadership to find a way to keep programs like our Common Caregiver TLC in our county plan to address the mental health need of older adults and adult family caregivers that care for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaker, please.
It's been interesting watching you guys go from mental to behavioral health and how you're using this with children, and you guys penalize behaviors. In fact, you engage in changing people's behaviors as well. And the question, what is a woman, is a good determinant of whether or not somebody has a behavioral or mental health issue. Instead, you are trying to change what that is and have kids learn sexualized things and, you know, put them in place to basically have some predator come and just tell them that, you know, I mean, if they just want to try this, it'll feel good. I mean, what you do to children that you take from their families by putting them in, like, woe to you guys for doing this to children, let alone anybody else. But it is just sad because men can say that they're women, and that's not a mental health issue, but a child being ripped apart from their family and being upset about it and crying like you heard earlier today, that's a behavioral health issue.
Good afternoon. My name is Leonor Garrison and I am here as a caregiver. My husband had a stroke and now dementia is slowly taking over away from me piece by piece. I became his caregiver overnight, and all that chaos I started disappearing too. I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and I felt like I was losing my mind. Then I connected with FCRC. They held me together when I was falling apart. They gave me the support and guidance I needed to keep going, but now these vital programs are being eliminated. San Diego County is throwing up their hands saying DHS has made it clear the counties are no longer responsible for these kinds of programs. That is unacceptable. Turning your backs on caregivers who need this type of support is like turning your backs on those who are elderly, sick, and frail with dementia.
I cannot throw up my hands and walk away from providing care. I am asking you, keep in mind the caregivers who are backbone of the healthcare system. Please do not cut these programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Final call for Kimberly Mullen. We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. We'll start with our first caller.
Hey, Consuelo here, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Is there an echo because I'm in a car?
There is not. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so behavioral health, again, our local government will never get to the root of the issue. Why? Because they are at the root of the issue. The system feeds off of ignorance and compliance. The same fixed system that creates the diseases profits off of band-aid solutions. Again, always circuit solutions. I want to remind the ones who have forgotten that every single disease out there, there's a cure, a real cure. Don't forget that. And remember that the medical industry only profits off of return customers, so they're not incentivized for curing you. So be wise to that, wake up to that. And like I said, even especially dementia and Alzheimer's, that's all very profitable industry. It's heavy metals to the brain, and you can detox that. You can totally detox that. High-fat diet, coconut oil, it's been proven.
Thank you. We'll hear from the next caller. Yes, we can hear you, Paul. Please go ahead.
The report is very thorough, 725 pages. Thanks for all the hard work. But according to the report, page A11, there are 12,500 people who experience unsheltered homelessness. However, the January 2026 point-in-time count identified only 5,000 individuals living unsheltered across the county. What explains this huge difference, and whom should we believe? I also noticed that behavioral health, there are 11,000 people in prison, a huge number. So I'm wondering if there's...
Thank you. We'll hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Alyssa, representing SBHI. Evidence-based early interventions returns up to $15 for every $1 invested. The lifetime public cost of untreated serious mental illness diagnosed by age 25 is $1.85 million per person in emergency rooms, jails, homeless services, and disability programs. The same systems as board funds. Early intervention doesn't just help children, it reduces that bill. Every year we fail to reach a child, that window narrows and the cost grows. Estimated 80,000 San Diego youth are affected by reductions to prevention and early intervention this year alone. Adults cycling through those systems were very often children whose needs were identifiable and treatable earlier. We're not asking for the board to choose between children and adults. Thoughtful rebalancing towards early intervention is the most cost-effective decision this county can make, and the investment most likely to strengthen the entire behavioral health system for everyone over time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Erin Homeloom, Director of San Diego Service Child and representing SBHI today. San Diego manages a $1.5 billion behavioral health system, yet children who represent 31% of individuals served receive only 19% of spending. In the final BHSA plan released last week, more than 5,000 children were removed from projected service estimates. A new state reporting requirement allows a standardized comparison of total mental health expenditures across counties. Across the 8 counties with over 1 million in population, the average investment in children and youth is 30%. San Diego is at 19%, the lowest large county in the state. We appreciate that approximately $15 million in children's funding was restored. However, the final plan still reflects a net reduction of $2.7 million on top of a starting deficit of $9 million for children's services and fewer overall number of children projected to be served. Finally, this plan contains no child-specific performance metrics. I encourage those accountability measures along with a budget to match. We can't shortchange kids here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll hear from the next caller, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Becky Rapp, and this transition is a major restructuring of behavioral health funding, expanding treatment, housing, and substance use services. While these changes are significant, the long-term success of this plan depends on prevention and addressing upstream drivers of behavioral health crisis. San Diego County is already seeing rising behavioral health and substance-related emergencies, including among youth. That reality calls for stronger prevention efforts, not only expanded crisis response and treatment capacity after the fact. I also urge the county to re-examine policies that may increase exposure to high-risk substances in sensitive environments, including proposals to expand marijuana across the backcountry and into remote recreational areas. Allowing greater availability in those settings can be counterproductive to public health goals, especially for youth exposure, prevention, and safety in outdoor spaces. This is.
Thank you. Thank you. Next caller.
It's true, in 2024, just like this year, we were expected to believe in very obviously rigged elections. That Prop 1 of $6.4 billion in debt was actually approved by the small minority of people that vote. Mental health, behavioral health, same junk that just means more drugs and drug addicts on the street to the benefit of ever-expanding government, and there's drug-pushing quacks, hospitals, and NGOs who heard with their hands out. The integrated plan gave 280 of the NGO prosecutors and only 1,500 regular people, representing only 2.2% of a 3.3 million population. The Times Equity Impact Statement even admits that the target population is Hispanics who are homeless and either young or old, aka the most vulnerable, locked up in $1 million debt in the county's racist live unwell centers. Nobody's living better than self-sufficiently. They're trapped in the county's drug industry-funded web of the behavioral health industrial complex while the few profit. Monica, are you worried about your doxing ally, Manny Paloma, who needs behavioral health herself, or do you continue to oppose transparency? Short story, leave the children alone. They don't need to be on drugs. You do.
We'll hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. I want to express my objection to item 19. The premise that this transition broadens the scope of engagement and shifts prevention funding to the State Department of Public Health is a good thing is wrong. Being an older retired social worker, I know clearly that prevention, early intervention with children is the most cost effective. To wait until you have to mop it up is so unwise when you can save yourself money and people's lives. And nothing is harder than watching children not receive the services that you know if they got them now would make all the difference to them, to their family, to their neighborhood, and to the county's funding sources. Let's let our State Department of Public Health know we want to take back prevention. We know best how to help our children. We know best how to do prevention, not the State Department.
Thank you. We have the next caller.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Berry, and I'm speaking today as its chair and on behalf of the Behavioral Health Advisory Board. And I want to acknowledge the substantial work that went into developing this draft DHSA integrated plan and the leadership of DHS Director Nadia Ferrara and the ongoing hard work and dedication of the DHS staff who contributed to this effort.
Throughout the process, we consistently heard concerns about accessibility, implementation clarity, and the lack of detail around how investments will translate into real pathways to care. Community members and providers emphasize the importance of protecting the full continuum of behavioral health services, including mobile crisis response, housing support, workforce stability, peer services, and culturally responsive and community-based care. This limit also comes amid significant fiscal uncertainty at both the federal and state levels, and it's more critical that limited resources preserve core infrastructure and avoid destabilizing the workforce and provide networks that communities rely on every day. We have looked forward to continuing partnerships.
Thank you. We'll hear from the final caller. Justin Gambler Hermes, I'm muting your call. If you'd like to provide your comments right now, it appears that you have another audio feed going. And we were able to hear that caller. Vice Chair Montgomery Steph, that concludes public comments.
Thank you very much. I will turn it over to Supervisor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's see who we got wrong on here. 18. All right, I got it. Got too many notes. Well, thanks for the presentation. It was good. You know, we heard a lot of concerns about children and making sure we're getting mental health care to children. I heard 90%, I heard 30%. So what are we doing to catch up with the needs of the children?
Yeah, so I think
Could
there's
you just kind of expand?
Yeah, maybe a few clarification. So we heard, first of all, Vice Chair, some clarification from the budget hearing last Monday. We went and kind of did a full review just to kind of understand what those sort of indications meant. So one of the things that we focused on, and this is identified in our optimal care pathways model, is really focusing on community-based care versus taking kids out of their homes and hospitalization. If you look at those other larger counties, most of them have invested a significant amount in very high acuity settings. So these are inpatient care and subacute, which is like long-term care. So we kind of did across looking at LA, San Bernardino, Fresno, some of the larger ones. Some of them were upwards of like $200,000 per kid, or $1 million per kid. We're in the like $14,000 per kid because our investments are primarily in community-based care, and that's where kids get multiple touches versus like these kind of you're one in or you're there for a long time and then you're out. So our focus is really as early intervention or the prevention side, even though prevention money has been shifted to the state. It's really those places where kids can stay in their home and get connected to care versus being in hospital-like settings.
Okay, well, so we're doing more community-based care.
Correct.
Well, one of the with smaller entities, but yeah. I guess my only concern is with some of these smaller-based community care folks. What's in the news lately is fraud and abuse, and so how does some of these smaller entities have the tracking capability or the reporting capability so we know how these dollars are spent? And because if we're, you know, word gets out that we're not able to track, not really able to account for, then this public gets sour on it, and it gets to be a harder issue. So do we have mechanisms in place to where we can track, success and track where the dollars are going and how they're being spent?
Yeah, great question. So as we shift, we do have methods right now for tracking. We have very sort of intense overviews, both on the programmatic side, on our quality assurance side. So that's really aligning, making sure the treatment is at quality and that the patients are getting, you know, they need, but also on the finance side. And one of experts in terms of understanding like how folks go through the system, where things are flagged, if somebody's getting too many of a certain kind of service, things like that. But I would say through our existing pathways, we do have very strong contract monitoring. They also are subjected to audits from the state, the Department of Healthcare Services, which are, I'll say from our own experience, very intense. So that's from a system level. Also, they do programmatic audits as well. So while, I think there's always a risk of something, right? We have a huge network that's, I think $900 million, something like that, in contracted programs. I think same concerns that you have, we have as well, and it's making sure that folks are providing care that is quality, it's at the level that patients want. Patients also can report to us if they have complaints, so they're not getting the care. And through our patient advocacy, which is separate from DHS, so there's many pathways in that way as well for folks to sort of highlight any concerns.
Okay. Well, it's under the spotlight that might be stroke here lately, and we just got to make sure we can track, funding and not that anybody's bad, but if this it's highlighted as abuse, and it's like I said, the funding is contrived, so we got to make sure that we keep it going, and we're open and transparent and everything as we can be with the taxpayer dollars. So thanks.
Thank you, Chair Pro Tem Geary.
Thank you. I just want to commend you and your team for this monumental and beginning of a lift transitioning behavioral health services to the zone. And I really appreciate all of your work. I'm looking forward to ongoing validations across the 3-year plan so we can keep refining our systems, reducing disparities, and enhancing equitable access to the highest quality of care. I also want to take a moment to highlight the Elevate Workforce Program and reaffirm my commitment to exploring bold, innovative approaches to growing the top-notch behavioral health workforce our community needs and deserves. And we know that that's going to be a very big challenge with everything coming out of this administration. And while the Trump administration has moved aggressively against permanent supportive housing, slashing funding, abandoning housing first, and pushing models that make accessing care often impossible. Something that we have demonstrated here at the County of San Diego is a commitment to this model, and it continues to deliver support and stability for our most vulnerable neighbors, which is very important. So I just want to say, as we move into this new era, we're choosing a future grounded in data, compassion, and what actually works, and our commitments must remain focused on quality outcomes and continuous improvement. So again, I want to thank you and your team for all of the work, and the speakers for coming out, and I'll just bring us in.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the members of the public, to our DHS Director, Nadia Rivera-Barnes. Thank you so much for the presentation of your team. I see you all are here. So I want to probably thank you for your hard work on the integrated plan. I continue to say, I think this is one thing this board agrees on, that this certainly is one of the most important roles that the county has. And so when Proposition 1 passed, before in December, proposed that the county assess the Behavioral Health Services Department, which at that time was under HHSA, just to see how we can optimize service delivery and outcomes for our residents in need of behavioral health, housing, and other social support services, especially with that change on the horizon. Then you heard one of the public comments say, let's tell the state they should do this, but this was all wrapped up in Proposition 1, and so this is something now, this is a mandated way that we have to deploy, deliver services and split those responsibilities with the state. And so that's why we're here, and I'm really grateful to see the entire team come together and present us with this integrated plan after we took that big step to strengthen and modernize our behavioral health system. So thank you very much for all of the work, and I know you'll keep us updated. I do want to acknowledge members of the public that have come out to speak about the way we provide for our children with regard to the behavioral health care system. And so I think continuing to monitor that is important. I had sort of the same questions as Supervisor Desmond had but would, like to take a little bit deeper dive on that too. But we do try to integrate our young people to community-based care. We're seeing that in this system, seeing that in the juvenile justice system as well. And so that is where we are finding better outcomes for our young people, but certainly want to acknowledge the work that everyone is doing and the fact that we have folks here that are with our young people every single day. And so we certainly want to keep your comments in mind as we move forward and make those systemic operational budgetary decisions. But thank you so much. We have a motion and a second on the floor. There's no further discussion. We can go ahead and vote.
Vice Chair Montgomery Scott, the motion passes unanimously. All supervisors voting aye.
Okay, so this is what we're going to do unless there are any objections.